Hello everyone, welcome back to the garden and to the channel, of course. Today's video is kind of like an impromptu video, being that I didn't actually anticipate making this one, but a couple of you all have suggested it, so I thought I would go ahead and do it. This is kind of how to grow Dianthus / Carnations. A lot of times there is a little bit of confusion with Dianthus and Carnations. Basically, I grow both Sweet William Dianthus, and this year I also grew some Carnations. Now, I am very familiar with the biennial Sweet William Dianthus. However, this is one of the first times that I've actually been really successful with Carnations as well. So I thought I would kind of combine the two in a video to share with you here, since I actually grow Carnations kind of as a biennial in my garden. So Sweet William is a biennial. That just means that they will put on leafy growth the first season and then overwinter and bloom the second season. Even though the heirloom varieties of Sweet William are biennial and behave in that manner, there are several hybrids of Sweet William Dianthus that will grow and bloom in the same season. For example, the Amazon series, the Neon Amazon series, is a variety that you can sow in the spring and it will bloom the same year. Also, I believe the Sweet series is one. In this video, you will be seeing the Sweet Coral Dianthus, and even though that is one that will that can be planted in the spring and bloom that same season, I actually planted it last season and had it grow as a biennial as normal, so I could get blooms earlier this year. So just something to keep in mind as we talk about this. And of course, we have our Carnations, which are considered perennial. I'm not quite sure of the longevity of them. However, I grow Carnations. I've had success growing Carnations as a biennial here in my yard. These are the grenadine, I'm not sure how to say it, as always, Carnations. I believe they are hardy to USDA Zone 8. So, like most of the things that are hardy to Zone 8 here in my garden, I'm in Zone 6B7 here in Kentucky. I actually planted these in the hoop house. I have tried to plant Carnations in the spring before here in my zone to kind of get them to grow through the summer and bloom in the same season, and it just does not work out, unfortunately. So planting them in the spring probably isn't a great option unless you have a dedicated perennial flower bed. Since my yard is small, for a cut flower garden, I actually don't have room for a dedicated perennial bed. And whenever I did try to grow those Carnations over the summer, it seems like they really struggled once the heat of summer arrived and the humidity of summer arrived. They really struggled. So I think growing these Carnations as a biennial is, at least for now until I figure something else out, the best bet for the best results here in my little cut flower backyard. So I know it was kind of a long intro, so getting right on into this. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to determine my first frost date, average first frost date in the fall. For me, that's about the first or second week of October on average. So I'm going to count back about a month and a half from that date, and that's when I am going to start my seeds for these plants. Now, to start my seeds, all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a seed starting tray, and I am going to fill that up with a moist potting mix. Just use a regular potting mix from the home improvement store. That's all I have access here, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to fill that up in my tray. I just use the open trays and I transplant accordingly. It's not really a big deal, but again, if you want to use soil blockers, if you want to use cell trays, it's up to you. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to sow those seeds, cover them with a little bit of dirt, just press them in very good, make sure everything's coming into good contact with the soil. And then I am going to kind of put them in a semi-sheltered location out in my yard. For me, this means an area that gets a little bit of shade during the hottest part of the day, but is outside, just in the environment. I don't need any kind of special grow lights or anything like that. The weather here where I am during this time of the year, consistently about 70-75 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. And obviously a little bit of fluctuation in temperatures at night. But in general, I find that the temperature range is just ideal for starting seeds, starting our hardy annual and biennial flower seeds. Of course, if you have, different experiences, different weather than me, you can start these seeds indoors under grow lights. Of course, if you are doing that, make sure to harden them off before moving them out into the garden. Germination of these seeds usually takes about a week. They germinate very, very quickly. I don't cold stratify them or give them any kind of real special treatment. In fact, once you have something like Dianthus growing in the garden, they will reseed very freely. So just something to consider as well if you are growing some of the heirloom types, which are very beautiful still. Lots of the heirloom types are very beautiful and very fragrant, which is just such a good quality. Now, the growth habit of each of these is a little bit different. You'll see that the leaves of the Dianthus are a little bit thicker and the leaves of the Carnations are a little more grass-like. Even so, once those have several sets of true leaves, about maybe 3 weeks later or something like that, what I like to do is just transplant them into the garden. In this video, you'll see that the Dianthus, the Sweet William, has been planted outside of the hoop house. They are very cold tolerant. I am not sure what zone they are cold tolerant to. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. It kind of depends on what type you're growing. However, here in my garden, I found that they had absolutely no trouble overwintering through the snow and the ice and everything else. And in fact, I even planted them in a microclimate on the north side of my hoop house that was much colder than the rest of my garden. When the weather was especially cold, I even grabbed a frost blanket just to make sure that things weren't getting too cold. During the coldest parts of the year, we had an ice storm and it was down to about -2 Fahrenheit. At some point during that time, the leaves started to look a little, they didn't look good. They were turning yellow a little bit and kind of frozen looking. But fortunately, they were fine. I thought I had lost some of the plants maybe, but it turns out in the spring when the weather finally started to warm up, every single one of them survived and every single one of them went on to bloom. Now, even though these plants are overwintered, obviously the Carnations overwintered in the hoop house. I did the same in making sure to cover them whenever the weather was exceptionally cold. But these aren't early spring blooming plants, at least not in my yard. They don't bloom in the early spring. Most of these blooms I would consider to be kind of late spring, very early summer. Just again, depending upon when you plant them, it can vary a little bit. Between these two, the Dianthus were the first flowers to bloom. They elongated very, very nicely. And you can see we just had kind of a sea of these beautiful coral colored blooms. I didn't grow much variety this year. I just had one packet of the coral seeds, which I thought turned out to be very, very lovely. I so wish that donations would have been open this year because we've had, so much success here in the flower garden. It's been really an exciting time of learning and growing things. The Carnations opened much, much later. But I was so pleased with how they performed this year. I've tried to grow Carnations before in the past and had minimal luck with them. But the key was to start them early, to start those seeds early the summer before, late summer, very early fall. Start those seeds and get them transplanted at a good size. Going into the winter, I wanted my Carnation seedlings to be about 6 inches tall. And then when spring came, they really, really gained that growth. They started growing, getting taller and taller. If I would change one thing about growing these, I would maybe consider using a layer of trellis netting to keep the stems upright. Compared to the Dianthus, these stems are very wiry and can fall over quite easily in the wind and the rain and everything like that. So that's something to consider as well. I was so pleased with how strong the flowers were in this just beautiful shade of pink. Really, really pleased. I hope that this video was helpful. As always, I try to remember all the growing points. My spacing in these was about 3 inches between each plant. But if you have a question that I overlooked or anything, just put it down in the comments below and I'll do my best to try to answer it. I'm always trying to be helpful. So hopefully I can kind of help others grow from my own experiences as well. And that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I am so appreciative. I really am. As always, be sure to leave a comment down below. I love to know what you guys think. Was it helpful? What experiences do you have? I'm always learning from the comments, which I really love. As always, if you're not a subscriber and you like this video, be sure to hit the little subscribe button, hit the little bell. The bell tells you whenever we make new videos. It's a great way to keep up with the channel and grow just our little gardening community here. As always, all the links to everything is down in the description below. Our link to Patreon and our YouTube memberships is there. It helps support the channel. It helps me pay for things like blog fees, and occasionally I get help with editing, which is really helpful because let's face it, I am not the most tech savvy person on the planet. But I am trying to keep learning and keep making our videos better. There's also a link to the blog. Oftentimes you can check out the blog and there would be more information and more pictures about the thing that I've talked about in the video, just because sometimes it helps for me to write down that information and kind of organize it much better. As always, feel free to share this video with a friend. It helps us so much when we grow the channel. I hope that you're having such an incredible day, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.